Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon. I, Ashish Kumar Dubey, Manager Medical Excellence, AstraZeneca, would like to welcome you all to PharmaSteer 2024. PharmaSteer 2024 is envisioned to be a transformative milestone in the pharmaceutical industry, highlighting the latest advancements and critical breakthroughs set to redefine the healthcare spectrum. With the involvement of esteemed AZ internal experts, thought leaders, and faculty from St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, this event will deliver profound insights, impactful keynote addresses, engaging dialogues, and an exclusive preview of cutting edge technologies that promise to redefine the pharmaceutical landscape. And believe me, PharmaSteer 2024 is going to be a great learning experience for the students. With that short context, let's not keep you and all our dignitaries waiting. Let's have a huge round of applause and welcome our dignitaries from AstraZeneca and say GS Medical College and KEM Hospital Mumbai on stage. Can we raise the curtains, please? All right. The dignitaries who have joined us today are Dr. Sangeeta Rawat. Perfect. The dignitaries who has joined us today are Dr. Sangeeta Rawat, Dean, Professor and Head, Department of Neurology, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. Dr. Viraj Rajyadhaksh, Lung and GI Cancers Franchise Head, International Markets, AstraZeneca. Dr. Sandhya Kamath, Professor and Head, Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. Dr. Hardik Vasnawala, International Medical Director, Heart Failure and Metabolism and India Medical Director, AstraZeneca. Dr. Padmaja Marathe, Professor Additional, Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. And Dr. Paresh Kohli, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. Now with that, let's have a lamp lighting ceremony. Lamp lighting is something which symbolizes arrival of light, signifying the triumph of knowledge over ignorance, invoking a sense of auspiciousness and purity as it marks the beginning of the meaningful event. Can we have the video, please? Thank you so much. May I now invite Dr. Viraj on the stage to recite Saraswati Vandana.
Thank you, Ashish. It is always such a pleasure and honor to be with my alma mater, from whom I have learned basics of medicine. And it is always such a pleasure to be with GS Medical College and KEM Hospital. This is a very important program and also a very auspicious event. And at the beginning of this event, to make this successful and to make our journey successful, let us evoke Ma Saraswati in the rendition of Saraswati Vandana. या कुंदेन तुषारहा धवला, या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता, या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा, या श्वेतपद्मासना, या ब्रह्मा शुकशङ्करा प्रभुविति देवै सदा वन्दिता, सा मा पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेष जाड्या पहा. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you so much, Dr. Viraj, for gracing this particular PharmaSteer 2024 inauguration with your eloquent rendition of Saraswati Vandana. Your divine invocation added a profound touch, illuminating our event with wisdom as well as auspiciousness. Thank you so much for that. Now, With that, let me invite Dr. Sangeeta Rawat, Dean, Professor, and Head of Neurology, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, on stage to share a few words of wisdom as well as encouragement to the students. Dr. Sangeeta Hasmukh Rawat is Dean and Professor, Department of Neurology, St. GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. Since becoming Dean on Jan 1, 2022, Dr. Sangeeta has led numerous initiatives, including establishing new ICUs, modular OTs, cadaver lab, dialysis facility, and robotic knee joint surgery. Under her leadership, liver and heart transplants have been successfully started at KM Hospital. She founded Mumbai's first memory clinic and dedicated stroke unit with an ICU. Her pioneering work in pediatric neurology and epilepsy includes founding the Epilepsy Care Center, one of India's top 4 centers for epilepsy care. Dr. Sangeeta Rawat has received prestigious awards such as Mata Ramai Ambedkar Samaj Bhushan Award and Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Achievement Award. She has published over 80 articles and was recently elected President of Indian Academy of Neurologists. With that, please join me in welcoming remarkable Dr. Sangeeta Rawat. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction. And a warm welcome to all the delegates of PHARMASTEER 2024. So I was associated with this program since the time I took over as a dean. And I realize it is one of the highly successful program which is hosted by our pharmacology department under the leadership of Dr. Sandhya Kamath and her whole team which is working for it. I think more than 200 delegates are joining on this for this online program. And I think after the COVID, this online thing has become very convenient to all of us. And more and more programs are also having these hybrid meetings. So this, I think, workshop which they have with AstraZeneca over 2 days, it gives a good opportunity for the young aspirant pharmacologist to see what is functioning of the pharmaceutical industry, where they have an option of going into the industry, they have an option of remaining into the medical colleges, so that various options is open to them, and that definitely will help them in choosing which is going to be their favorite pathway and where they would like to see themselves after 5 years in the down the line. And this is, I think, they have been conducting, this is the 5th year, right? I think. Yeah, so I think so it's growing so well. So I can make out that the delegates are really enjoying the lectures and all the topics which are covered by the good faculty who is going to deliver all this over the next 2 days. So it itself shows that the whole academic program is very meticulously planned, because it's every success lies of the conference lies where you have a more registration and more delegates listening to you. And that itself shows that this conference is going to be highly successful. And so I once again congratulate every one of you, those who have meticulously taken out the time to all the subjects which you have chosen probably are very useful to the students, postgraduate students, because nowadays students will come only when they get something. Otherwise, they always have an internet or things like that to study themselves on their own. But since you have more than 200 delegates, definitely the topics which you have chosen are very good, and the speakers which are there are very good. So it things talks about your success. So all the best, and I wish that you grant success to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangeeta ma'am, for being here with us today and for your words. And I must, I'm totally sure that it must have actually motivated our students across. With that, let me now invite Dr. Sandhya Kamath on stage to say a few words of encouragement for the students. Dr. Sandhya holds MD in pharmacology from University of Bombay and brings with her 30 years of undergraduate and 22 years of postgraduate teaching experience. She has served as the member of Secretary of Institutional Ethics Committees and is currently member of Naroji Wadia Ethics Committee and chairperson of Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. Additionally, she is an advisor to the Forum of Ethical Review Committees in India and the nodal officer of GSMC Multidisciplinary Research Unit. Dr. Sandhya is a respected faculty member at workshops on clinical research methodology, GCP, preclinical research, and herbal research. Her research has earned her and her team over 15 awards at national conferences, and she has published over 28 papers on topics such as rational use of drugs, ethics in research, drug utilization studies, and evaluation of medicinal plants. She is also the co-author of widely used textbook Pharmacology and Pharmacotherapeutics. With that, Dr. Sandhya, over to you.
Thank you, Hardik. Thank you, Ashish, and good afternoon, dear students. I'm happy and proud to welcome you all to PHARMASTEER 2024, which is the fifth collaborative outreach program between our department and AstraZeneca since 2020, first with the support of our Dean Madam, whom you just heard. PHARMASTEER is a first of its kind program to orient the postgraduate medical students to the medical affairs function in the pharma industry. And Dr. Viraj Rajadhyaksha, who you heard reciting the Saraswati Vandana, came to me in 2020 with this idea, and we were very glad to hold this program with AstraZeneca. A little more than a decade ago, medical affairs was thought of as a support function, but today it is considered as a frontline division alongside R&D and commercial. And as future medical affairs professionals, you will be taking a leadership role in medical affairs in the face of current technology, economic, and regulatory trends. Keeping this in mind, we decided to keep the theme of PHARMASTEER 2024 as Empowering Future Medical Leaders. Over the last 5 years, we've tried to include different topics related to the role of the pharmaceutical physician. This year's orientation program over 4 weeks includes unique topics such as nurturing lifelong learning, importance of medical strategy in business, patient advocacy, utility of AI in low-resource healthcare settings, and the art of storytelling, which are not commonly covered topics in other pharmacology workshops. Through PHARMASTEER 2024, we attempt to give you a panoramic view of not only the various roles that you'll play as perform as a medical affairs professional, but also how you as a future leader can improve patient outcomes using novel approaches. I hope all of you enjoy this program that we put together for you. Happy learning to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandhya ma'am, for being here with us today and inaugurating PharmaStay 2024 and your words of wisdom for the students. Thanks a lot for that. Now, let me invite Dr. Viraj Rajadhyaksha, Lung and GI Cancers Franchise Head, International Markets, AstraZeneca, for a few words of encouragement for the students. Dr. Viraj is a transformative leader renowned for his strategic vision and collaborative approach in pharmaceutical industry. He exemplifies a leadership style that blends innovation with empathy, fostering an environment where cross-functional teams thrive and breakthroughs are achieved. Dr. Viraj's leadership is characterized by his ability to inspire and empower everyone, encouraging open communication and creative problem solving. He places a strong emphasis on patient-centric strategies, ensuring that every decision and initiative prioritizes the well-being and the needs of the patients. His inclusive leadership style builds trust and drive collective success, motivating all to outperform. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Viraj on stage. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish. Dean Madam, Dr. Sandhya, Dr. Padmaja, my teachers, Hardik, Ashish, AstraZeneca team, and the whole team of St. GS Medical College and KM Hospital. It is such a pleasure to be here on year 5. And I do remember the day when I had this first discussion with Dr. Sandhya, and we said, okay, if we have to start such a program, it has to be with St. GS Medical College and KM Hospital, because the pioneering work that has been done by this department and this institution for the last 50 to 60 years in the field of pharmacology and therapeutics and beyond is absolutely unparalleled, at least within India. So we decided that we will do this, and we are now in year 5 of PHARMASTEER. Why PHARMASTEER and why pharmaceutical medicine? Friends, many of you are on the threshold of an absolutely outstanding career and leadership journey that lies in front of you. But pharmaceutical medicine is evolving. It is becoming far more broader than what we had ever thought of. We are entering into areas such as diagnostics, patient screening and detection, use of new technologies such as artificial intelligence, and how we can generate value to access. These were foreign terminologies when many of us joined the industry a couple of years back. And even if you decide to remain in academia, you will continue to train new generation of students with many of these terminologies. And I'm very happy to see that some of these broad topics are included in this year's theme of empowering medical leadership. Medical affairs, clinical research are now leaders. We are leading business. There are several organizations at the global level whose businesses are being led by medically qualified people. And this is the future where industry will look at medically qualified individuals as leaders of not only their R&D and medical functions, but also leadership in their business function. And this is something that we should always remember. I would request all of you to learn from each other. Lectures will always be there, but learn the concept, but share practices. And more important, when you go back to your medical colleges, try to implement these learnings. Embark on small projects that make an impact to your department, to your team, and also to patients across India. At the end of it, let us remember that we exist here for India. We exist here for Indian patients. And over the last 20 to 25 years, the Indian diaspora in India as well as abroad has made a significant difference. So let us utilize maximum benefit out of these next few weeks that we are here. Finally, I would say the program does not end in December. Your relationships start. Many of you might have met each other or meet each other for the first time. Continue those partnerships. It is always learning from each other, listening to each other, which helps us in the journey. I wish you all the best. And once again, before I finish, I want to thank St. G.S. Medical College and KEM Hospital and the local AstraZeneca team for making this wonderful program. Ashish, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Viraj, for being here with us and your words of encouragement and providing direction to the students out there. Thanks a lot for that. Now, with that, let me invite Dr. Hardik Vasnawala on stage to share her words of encouragement, his words of encouragement for the students out there. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. I know you mentioned about the traffic. We are, staying in the virtual era, and we totally understand the pros and cons of having the virtual setups across. Thank you so much for being here with us. Dr. Hardik, a strategic, a visionary, and accomplished medical leader having diverse experience across international markets. Dr. Hardik's professional journey has been marked by a trajectory of excellence and strategic impact within pharmaceutical industry. Commencing as medical science liaison, he expertly connected with opinion leaders, ensuring the optimal execution of medical strategies. Dr. Hardik not only expanded his responsibilities across a broader region, but also took on pivotal role of leading the international markets. With around 15 years of dedicated service at various capacities, Dr. Hardik's pivotal contributions to AstraZeneca include playing an instrumental role in shaping up strategies for innovative molecules envisioned to lead the practice change and ultimately to improved patient outcomes. With that, let's join me in welcoming Dr. Hardik on stage. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish, for such a kind welcome. I don't know how much of that I deserve, but thank you anyway. Thank you to the fellow panelists. I think, as I put it in the message, it's such an honor to be here. As Viraj was mentioning humbly, like how he feels when he connects with the institute where he started learning about this profession. And Viraj is my guru. So you can understand how I feel to be part of this program and to be part of this panel. So thank you for having me here. And thank you to the organizers for making AstraZeneca India part of this particular program. I think the previous panelist did mention the importance of this particular program. So when I started my career, I ended up in this industry, I would say almost by an accident. I wanted to try something non-clinical and I got the invitation and I said, okay, let's give it a try. And then I'll do something else. And this might happen to many of us, and it may happen to many in future as well. But where this program comes very useful is it's a nice platform for all of you to understand how the pharma industry works, what is the role of medical affairs, what their key deliverables are, what kind of capabilities are needed to be successful in this kind of program. So I think having such exposure at such an early stage during your academic journey while you start thinking about your professional career will be invaluable. So I think the first step is done, which is putting this platform in place, which is running highly successfully 5th year now. But the second part, as Viraj was also mentioning, is like make sure you make most of it. Uh, be engaged, be in the conversation, ask questions, get clarity, not only during the session, but then try and build network with the fellow attendees, your friends, and have these discussions in an open and transparent manner and get clarity. I think that's the key to the success of this program. And not only this program, I think these values and this approach is useful everywhere, and more so in the corporate world if you decide to join the corporate world in the industry. So as I said, privileged to be part of the program. We look forward to a successful 6 weeks to offer you different sessions. Ashish and team working with under guidance of the esteemed faculty has put in nice agenda, nice program. We would like to make it as interactive as possible. But we look forward to hear your questions and comments and try and answer them as much as possible and begin this fantastic journey into the 5th year. And again, this will not end in December, as previously mentioned. This is just the beginning. One of the hidden interests for us is to make sure that we interact with the large pool of talent and then maybe identify the top ones who could potentially join us in the future to take the medical affairs forward for AstraZeneca India as well. So yes, I think there is something for every stakeholder, including me and AstraZeneca India, and for all the other faculty as well. And the learning is always two-way. So when we go through the journey of this program in 6 weeks, I'm sure we'll learn as much as you are going to learn from the program as well. So that would be my welcome note to so to say. That's what Ashish asked me to do. But I really look forward to make sure that the effort which has gone into developing this program from everyone on this call is maximally utilized by all of you, and it adds long lasting impression for you as an individual and as your professional career embarks on a new journey. So thank you for being here and participating, and we look forward to engaging discussion going forward. Ashish, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hardik, for those words of encouragement. I'm sure this would have provided a lot of guidance to the students out there. Thanks a lot for that. With that, let me now thank to all our dignitaries for being here with us today and doing the successful inauguration of PharmaSteer 2024. With that, let's start our sessions of the day with general guidance for the students. Every session is scheduled for 30 minutes with 20 minutes of presentation and 10 minutes of Q&A. You can ask your questions during the session using the chat box option, which will be responded after the session during the last 10 minutes. With that, let us steer ourselves to the first session of the day, and which is adapting to changing healthcare landscapes. And for that, we have with us none other than Dr. Kavita Varghese, Senior Director, Oncology Medical Training, AstraZeneca. Dr. Kavita currently holds the esteemed position of Senior Director, Oncology Medical Training within AstraZeneca Global. Her journey with AstraZeneca began as regional medical advisor in cardio-renal portfolio based out at Mumbai, India. Dr. Kavita has consistently ascended ranks, contributing significantly to the organization's global impact with strategic focus on driving medical capability building and digital innovation in medical affairs. Dr. Kavita's leadership has been instrumental across. Her progressive roles include international medical Lead Medical Excellence Associate Director for the international region, and most recently, Senior Director of Oncology Medical Training. Through each role, Dr. Kavita has played a pivotal part in shaping up the landscape of medical affairs. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kavita on stage. Dr. Kavita, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish, for that very kind welcome. And hi, everyone. This is amazing to be here. Always loved talking to people during PharmaStay. There's so much of inquisitive young minds, and the questions that come after as well is super interesting to see how everyone's interested in the pharmaceutical world, especially that of AstraZeneca. So hopefully we get some young gems in here in this group, just like Hardik mentioned. So let me just quickly share my deck. Please bear with me. And I'm hoping that you would be able to see this.
Yes, Dr. Kavita, it's visible.
Yes, please.
Perfect. So I think change is something that people are, I'm sure, are sick of hearing, and that correlation between COVID and change is definitely going to be there. And I'm in AstraZeneca, so I actually have to mention that correlation. But as far as doctors are concerned, everyone understands how COVID changed a lot of things, and not just in the healthcare landscape, also in the digital landscape. And we are now in this era where people are getting even more digitally savvy. That includes the healthcare ecosystem as well. But these are not the only changes that are affecting healthcare. And when the healthcare ecosystem evolves, we will have to evolve with it. So, as they say, we are in the VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But this is also a place of great opportunity. So that's what I want to talk to you today about. So I would, in this presentation, take you through how it's important to adapt in changing landscapes. So we'll just quickly touch upon what exactly is changing in the healthcare landscape, what are the challenges when it comes to adapting in that, and what are the strategies for successful adaptation. So I know there's a lot on this slide out here. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. Let's just dive straight right in. Now, let's take a holistic look at what is in fact changing in the healthcare landscape. And like previously mentioned, technological advancement, that's definitely going ahead. And who hasn't been in a meeting where AI is mentioned? So AI and data analytics, they're essentially revolutionizing the healthcare delivery system, because you can apply these from anything starting from drug discovery all the way up to patient care. And when we talked about patient care, now telemedicine, when I was a med student, I remember that telemedicine used to be this very fancy term. There was a room where there were huge screens, but beyond that, it wasn't as advanced as it was, say, in Australia. But now that's changing as well. Telemedicine and remote monitoring are becoming more and more mainstream. And then when you come to how care is being viewed. Earlier, there was a sense of volume-based care on the number of hitting the number of patients, and the impact was always in patient numbers. But we are slowly shifting that focus into value-based care, where we are having an intense focus on patient outcomes and cost effectiveness, because whatever we create as a solution for patients or the healthcare ecosystem should be a sustainable thing. So talking about patients, patient centricity, AstraZeneca would be nowhere without this fundamental value of ours. We even have it in one of our 5 core values. We do the right thing for the patient. So there's a greater demand for personalized care now that's aligned to individuals' preferences and needs, because patients are being more and more educated about what they want. In fact, they're having more of a participatory approach in their healthcare management. They are no longer just going by whatever they just hear a doctor say. There's Google right now, and there's ChatGPT. So there are so many avenues. But more than that, patients want to actually understand how they can even take a step for early intervention, like diagnosing the disease early enough and preventing the disease early enough, which is music to our ears, because if you actually start catching diseases earlier on, if you can actually screen for cancer and prevent a patient from going through a traumatic journey afterwards, that's the best thing that we can actually do for them. So when we are talking about early screening and all of those things, there's also this other aspect that we want to have as early as possible, and that would be things like drug approvals. In fact, during COVID, when the vaccines were coming out, and we really, really want the vaccine to come out as soon as possible, but there's also this conflict that if the vaccine is coming out too soon, is it safe? There were all these questions. So drug approvals, we want as an industry to actually have these come into the market as early as possible, but as safe as possible. So that's where regulation comes into play to ensure that we can actually bring in that safety feature. But even in the regulatory space right now, there are a lot of changes coming in from drug approvals, what you actually should consider about data privacy. Digital health is becoming a huge thing. So how do you actually regulate that and make sure that it's safe? So a lot of changes happening there as well, and a lot in the right direction, but you need to be cognizant of those to actually dance along to that tune. And the last one, as far as doctors are concerned, in several countries, the aging population is now driving up demand. There is a lot of different kinds of diseases that would be coming more up on the forefront because of the age factor as well. So demographics has a huge role to play. I'm living in the UK right now, so out here, there's this huge sense of making sure that people are getting culturally competent care because different ethnicities have different considerations in their treatments. And with all of these things going on, there's also an ongoing labor shortage when it comes to healthcare sector. And that means that we need to be more innovative when it comes to staffing solutions and getting doctors and the whole healthcare professional system to be more productive, but not expend all their energy in a useless fashion that is more about grunt work. So it's more about work smart, not work hard, though doctors have a tendency to do both. So let's focus our attentions on what it actually means for medical affairs in the new healthcare landscape. And the healthcare landscape is shifting so much that this is the general feeling of what a medical affairs person might feel like on a regular day. But I'm thinking not for AstraZeneca because we are also trying to go along with the flow. And I'll show you in the last slide why. So the first thing, naturally, when you think of change, is that the challenge would be there would be some resistance to change. And resistance is not blind resistance. Physicians would be hesitant to, and very rightfully so, to consider new treatment approaches without having the right information that they feel comfortable with. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that you need the right relevant information. And there are also perceived risks. So you need to also have information about how to distinguish between an actual risk and a perceived risk. Even when it comes to the healthcare ecosystem, staff members might be resistant to new technologies and new processes. And there's a general sense of resistance when somebody needs to upskill in something that is completely unrelated to whatever they've been learning so far. So for a person who's been in med school for years and years, so heavily invested in biology, suddenly coming and telling them that you need to do something digital, they immediately think coding. But that's not exactly what you're talking about. But even beyond that, it's about changing the way they work. And we can sometimes be in a traditionalist mindset because it used to work for a very long period of time, very successfully for up until now. But things are very different now. Things change super fast. So what that means for the medical affairs team, the implication is that we need to be better at effective resistance management by being empathetic and understanding the core needs of the people that we're trying to partner with, the staff and the physicians in the change processes, and be effective at addressing those concerns and fears with evidence-based, scientifically sound data. The next one is integrating advanced technologies. So we'll be touching on this topic quite a bit often, I guess. So again, there's an increased reliance on AI and data analytics, and which actually means that medical affairs, we don't need to be IT technicians or IT professionals. It's just that we need to learn new tools and methodologies. And these, for the successful implementation, everyone hears of things like omni-channel, and everyone hears of all these cool ways that AI can actually be used. But pharma is also a very regulated environment. So some of these usages can be complex and resource intensive as well. But what we can do then is to make sure that we're training our people right, integrating the systems right, and ensure that AI is complementing our work rather than the common fear that a lot of people might have that it's going to replace human expertise, which is actually not the case. coming to the regulatory challenges that I mentioned before. So there are, of course, several regulatory updates that are constantly happening, especially in the digital solution space and also in real world evidence. We need to be informed of these just to ensure that they're also compliant, and that data governance framework is extremely important, which means that you need to be really close to regulatory bodies to make sure that there are ethical standards that are being met and that we are protecting patient data. Now, this means that you cannot afford to work in silos. So traditionally, medical affairs may have, in several companies, been a siloed function, but in AstraZeneca, we definitely believe that there should be more collaboration and breaking down of silos, because medical affairs professionals have a lot to offer to other streams as well. And we need to align our goals with R&D, marketing, the commercial colleagues that we have, to ensure that everyone is singing from, say, the same hymn sheet. And that means cross-functional collaboration is very much needed to make strategic decisions and optimize the whole product development and then getting that to the patient. So then there's this thing about what's going on with the competition. So how do you differentiate yourself from the others in a competitive market? And because of the new therapies coming up, new technologies, there are so many things out there. Even if you think of it from a doctor's perspective, they are bombarded by information. And when you're bombarded by information, it's very difficult to A, quickly grasp what's going on, B, recall what was just being said, and C, see the value in their own practices. That means we need to actually be good at producing comprehensive value dossiers and also tie it to what it actually means in the real world and what it could actually mean. And when I'm talking about economic impact, there's a lot of good that we can actually bring about in the healthcare infrastructure by reducing the healthcare burden. So if you talk to policymakers, that's what they're interested in understanding. How can it actually aid the government in larger schemes and then bring in that total value, which is why medical affairs is not just about talking to the doctors alone. It's about talking to several people in the healthcare ecosystem who make critical decisions about how patients get the right care. Talking about patients, that means you would be shifting to more patient-centric care models. And we already touched on this a little bit. The implications of this is that we would also need to consider patients, advocacy groups, and all of these other elements that surrounds caregiving to inform product development and how we communicate to these people for them to understand when to use it, why should they use it, and why they should be considering a certain treatment option as opposed to something else that is already there in the market as well. Like, they're making decisions and we need to be good at helping them make those decisions, which means we need to build a diverse skill set. So Ashish has mentioned that in my previous roles, this was the major focus of mine. It still is part of my job to actually look at capabilities, but now we're talking about future fit capabilities. And it's about how we can actually evolve the medical affairs function to continuously develop according to the new demands coming in from this changing environment. So why should we adapt? Should we be dinosaurs? I don't think so. I would rather medical affairs people be the person on the right, Indiana Jones, because you need to adapt and adapt quickly, because it's a matter of survival, not just for medical affairs, but also for your patients. When you're actually reaching out to the healthcare ecosystem, it's all done with the aim of ensuring that the patients are surviving as long as possible and with a great quality of life. So being a dinosaur is not an option for us. But let's talk about real things. What exactly can we get from adaptability? So we need to be agile in navigating all these rapid changes and enhancing innovation, because this can actually have implications on drug development, clinical trials, patient engagement, and that innovation or agility is super important for us to do the other practical aspects, like managing costs effectively. We talked about a value-based care system where we need to optimize operations. We need to reduce waste. We can actually enhance cost efficiency, and that has a huge implication on healthcare infrastructure. And then when it comes to patient outcomes themselves, we should be able to adapt ourselves and ways of working and our understanding of how things can actually help and how science can be used to meet the needs of the patient, because we do want them to have improved satisfaction, great quality of life, And in all of that, we also need to make sure that the healthcare ecosystem is also building resilience. There are so many external pressures, the economic fluctuations, when pandemics happen, when there's a public health crisis. And during all of these things, doctors don't get to actually sit back and then just say, let's wait this out. They are still out there doing their jobs, saving lives. So how can we make sure that they can continue doing that and deliver those essential needs? And that's where we need to be so good at strengthening our collaborations, because there are so many people that we can partner with in the healthcare ecosystem that are not just doctors who are just treating, it's even beyond that, like the payers, regulatory bodies. There are so many people who actually collectively strengthen that resilience that we were wanting to build. So in conclusion, the healthcare landscape is constantly changing. And if an organization fails to adapt, we will not just be left behind, we will also be affecting the patients in a very negative fashion. So there is, I say, a nobility in learning how to adapt. And the challenges of adaptation might be mostly related to resistance to change, lack of resources, or inadequate training. But the good news is that these can all be overcome. And healthcare organizations taking several steps to successfully adapt to this change, they are the ones that foster a culture of innovation. They're the ones who understand the value of training, and they also know how to leverage technology to improve efficiency and quality. So I'm going to stop here by saying that it's not about the waves that we see, and we can't change or direct the winds, but we can adjust our sails, and that's why we need to be adaptable.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Kavita, for that thought-provoking session. I mean, it must have been mind-boggling for most of us who are, hearing to your session right now. Thanks a lot for that. It was really, really great. We do have received some questions from the students while you were delivering the talk. And my first question to you, Dr. Kavita, is I know you have already touched base upon this particular aspect. However, this for the reiteration perspective, how has technology impacted the healthcare landscape, and what are the most promising technological advancements you foresee?
Well, AstraZeneca is definitely trying to be on the forefront of this. It's a great question, by the way. So at the moment, we have, like I said, a lot of data available to us, but it's about how to harness this data and how to actually do things that we couldn't have done before. For example, we have invested in a technology called QCS, which is essentially trying to take a lot of slides of tissue samples and then putting that through AI so that AI can quickly detect which patient can actually respond better to a certain drug. Now, that is something that takes a lot of volume of work, and the time that we would have to actually take to do that and the resources behind that would have been, it would make it impossible to do this manually. And not only that, with technology, we can get to a layer of sophistication in terms of discerning the minutest details in a tissue sample. And that in itself can make a huge difference. So where humans can actually take it to one level, using AI, we can actually increase that efficiency or increase the quality of evaluation, which again, you do need a human in the loop. So it's not that AI alone can do everything. We do need a human in the loop, but it's more like a super duper assistant that you would have, like never thought before of. And with that, again, you can actually try to discern which set of patients would benefit better. And especially when it comes to things like cancer care, you want to make sure that the patient who's getting a therapy is not going to be subject to side effects that they shouldn't be having anyway if we knew earlier on that this was not the right treatment for them. And this is just one example of AI being utilized. But even with technology helping us find out molecules with the right modeling techniques on what would actually be, like, there are so many different molecules that go through the clinical trials. And then we finally figure out that, you know what, it's not working, but we still are behind that protein structure that would actually click, and technology can aid us there. So there are so many examples that I'm pretty sure that nobody else would be able to ask a question after this. But I'm stopping here, but just hoping that these things actually spark an idea of how exactly technology is being so utilized in research and development, but also in healthcare other healthcare options, like how can you actually make clinical trials more efficient? How can you actually figure out what's the best way to recruit? It's across the spectrum right now.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kavita, for that. So my next question is more in terms of patient centricity, and the question is, what are your views in terms of best practices that should be considered for maintaining high quality patient-centric mindset amidst rapid industry changes?
Well, patience is at the core of everything. So, having an understanding of the patient journey or the patient care journey is critical for us to understand what are the key decision-making points. And that's the one that we're trying to do in medical affairs. We are trying to figure out where the care gaps are. It could be a data gap, it could be an education gap, or it could be an implementation gap in a market because of several ecosystem factors. But when we are actually looking at the patient, that's that holistic view that you're considering, not just whether the mechanism of action will work in their pathophysiology, so to speak. So it's about going through that patient, and not just patient, it's also the caregiver journey. So when you actually have that empathy and, in a way, design thinking, that's when you start building up prototypes that actually work for them. And you also have to understand that this is an iterative process. Like the healthcare landscape changes, the patient journey also might change. So it's about how to be constantly close to that and keep a pulse check on that.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kavita. And I think the next question is more for the institution perspective. The question is, how should educational institutions prepare students for rapidly changing healthcare environment and predominantly the medical colleges?
That's an excellent question, because you realize after you finish MD that you are very good at the science, but then there are so many things that happen beyond the four walls of the college that you don't have official classes on. And things like strategic thinking and how to actually critically analyze something. So we do parts of that when we're doing the critical analysis of a journal article, for example. We do that. But it's about how to apply that critical thinking or the creative thinking mentality in everything that you see, trying to do that continuous improvement in whatever that you see from the start of one process to the whole tactical execution of something else. And very, very importantly, it's not just enough for us to understand the science. It's about our ability to communicate that science well, because nobody would listen to, say, I've been a teacher myself in med schools. And then if I just keep talking about the science, but if I can't make that student's mind like, aha, now I get it. Now I know how that applies. That's a different skill set altogether, about how to strategically communicate, how to effectively communicate, and understand the mindset of the person that you're communicating to. Because at the end of the day, any person that you're talking to has their own worldview about and a set of data points that they already have in their minds. And what you are doing is you're adding on to that. So how do you actually communicate well? That's something that is critical beyond what just the science is.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kavita. The next question is revolving around telemedicine. And the question is, what are the long-term implications of rapid adoption of telemedicine on healthcare accessibility and quality?
So earlier, like I previously mentioned, in Australia, they had telemedicine because, it's very difficult to get over long range areas and going to remote areas, etc. But now it's not just about remote areas. Suppose, there is a pandemic, or in a situation where you can't exactly be with the patient immediately. Having digital technology is brilliant, but it's not just about reaching the patients alone. There are situations where doctors are reaching out to other doctors. For example, there's a surgery being conducted. It's complex, it's new. You can actually have the expert with you, being there with you, guiding you. So this whole premise of telemedicine, because of this, has exploded, and technology is also aiding us in that. So it's just going to get better from here, I guess.
All right, thanks. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Kavita. And this brings to my last question. And the question is, what are your views on interdisciplinary collaboration between healthcare professionals, institutions, and other sectors, including pharmaceutical sector, driving innovation in healthcare?
My perspective is that it's indispensable. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Because if you don't do that, there are several people trying to solve the same part of the puzzle, but they're all holding the puzzle pieces with themselves. You need to connect, and that's when you can actually do the best thing that you can do for patients. And the more you build these bridges, there is so much learning that comes across different areas, and learnings that one part can actually use for the other. And the more we connect, we also get to closely understand what are the real blockers or the real challenges to making sure that the patients have the best outcomes. So, like I said, it's not a optional thing anymore. It is a must-have.
All right, thank you so much. Let me now thank to our audience for such amazing questions, and to Dr. Kavita for equally amazing answers. Thank you so much for patiently responding to all the questions that came across. Thanks a lot for a great session around this. Thank you so much, Dr. Kavita.
Thanks for having me.
With that, let me now move on to our second topic of the day, and which is overview of medical affairs and its role. And for that, we have with us Dr. Hardik Vasnawala, International Medical Director, Heart Failure and Metabolism, and India Medical Director, AstraZeneca. As I said earlier, Dr. Hardik is a strategic and visionary medical leader, and with diverse international experience, with a professional journey of more than 14 years, he actually has played a critical role in shaping and executing medical strategies across international markets. Dr. Hardik's pivotal contributions to AstraZeneca include developing innovative strategies for medical affairs for the molecules designed to drive practice change and enhance patient outcomes. With that, let me invite Dr. Hardik on stage. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish. Do I share my slides or you will be sharing it from your end? I'm
Both
okay,
are
I guess.
doable. Nirav, can you share the screen from your side?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
I like the photograph in my intro slides. I wish I can be at that stage forever. Thank you for that. That was my first photograph when I joined AstraZeneca medical team 15 years back as MSL. And it's like,
Wow.
I'm very fond of that photograph, and that's why I keep sharing it everywhere, unless people ask me a very professional photograph in a suit and tie and everything. Otherwise,
Dr.
that's my
Hardik,
silly
slides
part.
are visible to you, sir?
Yes, I can see it. Yes.
Yes.
And regarding that, Dr. Hardik, it's been around 7 years for me to also look at the same photograph whenever I need it.
Yeah, I know people might get bored, but I love it. Okay.
Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Aziz. Thanks again for setting this up and having me here for this particular presentation. Difficult to follow Kavita, but I'll try and do my best to keep them. So yeah, I think we are here to talk about overview of medical affairs and its role. The objective of this session is to give you an idea on why medical experts are needed in the pharmaceutical industry, what their job looks like, why this role is so critical in the whole picture of industry from drug discovery to drug delivery to the patient. And also, I think I could catch some of the last discussions Kavita was having is like, it is rapidly evolving. So maybe what I'm sharing today might become less relevant tomorrow or by the time you actually join the industry after completing your academics. And that's the most important thing. Like, how can we be agile and make sure that we keep learning in what we are doing today and what we are aiming for tomorrow. So I'll go through a few slides just to give you a quick overview. I think 20 minutes never enough to summarize such a vast topic and the critical one, but I'll try my best to make sure that I can give a gist of it, and hopefully we can have a good Q&A and discussion. So yeah, keep your questions coming in the chat or Q&A, and I think Ashish has collected some of the questions in advance also from audience, I guess, through poll, etc. So we will try and answer some of those questions as well. If you can move to the next slide, please. Neeru. Thank you. So I think the reason why medical affairs is needed is, let's say there is a fantastic clinical trial published in NEJM, which is one of the top clinical journal in the world. And the people who did this study believe that this should be implemented in the clinical practice from tomorrow. But is it that simple? Like if a groundbreaking trial results are there in any GM, will every physician across the world read that, interpret that in the appropriate manner, and start implementing that in a clinical practice? Or the national organizations will consider the trials and start changing the guidelines? Or the payers who are making medicines accessible will start changing their approach and start incorporating these medicines in their formularies and making these medicines accessible to the patients? Most likely no. And even if that happens, that might happen over a period of decades. And that's where the medical affairs comes into the picture, to be the catalyst and make sure that this transition from clinical evidence into a laboratory to implementation for the patient is fast-tracked, so that every innovation reaches to the most eligible patient in a most appropriate, compliant way. And then we keep elevating the patient care and patient treatment to the next level. So that's why we have this most critical role in a pharmaceutical company, which is medical affairs. They understand the science and simplify that to a different stakeholders. Like if they are working with the commercial team, they will provide the strategy on how to communicate the science, differentiate the product, and then the commercial team can speak to the customers in that scientific language. If they are speaking to the external experts, they will try and answer their questions: why the study was done, what is the implication, what are the safety profiles, what are the key considerations if they were to try these medicines in their clinical practice, what the guidelines says, what the label says, what is on label, what is off label. So those kind of discussions they will have with the doctors. And they are speaking to healthcare system at large in efforts to create access of these medicines. I understand India is more of an out-of-pocket market, but there is still insurance and there are still 20% of government employees where the government is trying to provide access. So again, having those discussions with those stakeholders to make them understand the value the product provides, and then hopefully include them in the formulary so that these medicines become available to that large section of the patient as well. So that's what the medical affairs primarily does in a pharmaceutical company. There are different roles also apart from hardcore medical affairs role, which could be R&D, which could be regulatory affairs, could be patient safety, and so on and so forth. If you move to the next slide, maybe I'll try and cover some of this as well. Niro, if you can. Yeah. Thank you. So as I was mentioning, the key functions for the medical affairs are: one, which is medical strategy and the evidence generation, which is providing the strategy. So we are into the business of science. So if there is a good positive data which should change the clinical practice, we need to define a right medical strategy which can fast track that adoption into the clinical practice. And that's where the medical affairs becomes a strong leading partner in the pharmaceutical industry to ensure that the company strategies are driven by the science. We'll always have the global phase 3 studies and the clinical development program to establish the value of the molecule in terms of right efficacy and safety balance. But we may have to complement that with local evidence studies, real world evidence, real world effectiveness, and the safety profiles in our context and our country. So we get engaged in this evidence generation studies and the projects as well. Then the medical information and scientific communication. So Of course, there will always be a lot of queries from the physicians, from the patients, and from other stakeholders around our product, its efficacy, its safety. So medical is core to make sure that these informations are passed on and the queries are addressed in the most efficient, scientific, and the compliant way. Then a lot of educational activities are also undertaken by the medical affairs team. I'll give you an example, and I was talking about this to my team yesterday evening. Like, we came with a drug in a diabetes, which was SGLT2 inhibitor, sodium glucose co-transport 2 inhibitor. Originally in diabetes, sugar in urine is bad. And then we came with this medicine, which says that actually, if you pee sugar in your urine, it can help control your hyperglycemia and it can help treat diabetes. And this I'm talking like 15 years back. And then everyone was like wondering, are you crazy? Like sugar in urine is bad, and now you are bringing a drug which will be more sugar in the urine. Will it actually work? But the clinical development program was such robust and the results were so impressive that slowly and steadily with the medical strategy, the medical education, and our interaction with the experts, of course, backed by the robust clinical development program, efficacy, safety, and all that. But with that strong medical affairs intervention, in no time, all guidelines are changed, all textbooks are rewritten, and then SGLT2 inhibitors not only become a standard of care in a type 2 diabetic population, but with the evolving data, they are now becoming the standard of care in FREF, FPEF, in chronic kidney disease, and all of that. So just to give you a real life example, and I'm sure there are multiple examples across multiple therapy areas, across multiple MNCs who are doing this kind of research. But if there was no medical affairs in this particular example and instance which I gave, then physicians would still think that peeing sugar in urine through SGLT2 inhibitor is a bad idea. So let's not give any weightage to this research or this MEGM paper, and the practice would continue with the other conventional anti-diabetic medicines. So I think that's the essence of the medical affairs, like making sure that we understand the science in the best interest of the patient and then communicate that science in a most balanced manner to the physician. I would clarify the role of the medical affairs is not to sell the product and increase the commercial output of the organization. There are different verticals, different teams within any company across the industry, and they are given different tasks and roles to perform. The role of the medical affairs is to understand the science and define the strategy which can help achieve the overall end objective, which is making the right medicine available to the right patient in most efficient and fastest manner it can. Health economics outcome research, it's evolving stage in India, I would say, but some of the other developed countries, if I take an example, the HEOR is like must, and this gives the sorry the insights to the payers and the stakeholders that if I invest X amount in giving this medicine to my patients in a country, this will give me 1, 2, 3 benefit. What is the cost effectiveness, cost offset, budget impact model, and all of that. And this is rapidly evolving again in India also, because even at a government level, there is a lot of attention and focus in driving the healthcare sector and take it to the next level. So I think this will become more and more relevant as we go and move forward. So again, this could be one of the interest area for the future medical leaders as well. And field medical, I think this is something indispensable, as I've been saying in last 10 minutes or so, that interacting with the physicians, convincing them on the science, giving them the right information, answering their questions, and then taking them along to make the real clinical practice change. And that takes a lot of conversations in the field by the medical expert representing the industry and the medical expert, the doctor who are taking care of the patient. So field medical role is a medical face of a company to the external world, and that's an absolutely critical role. And the way we have seen the trend, most likely people do join in these kind of roles as a starting step for the industry, and then they keep moving forward in their career and journey as well. I'll talk about that in the later slide we have. But yeah, I think field medical again is the most crucial part of the entire medical affairs organization in the company as well. Next slide, please. So now I'll quickly talk about each of the key pillar and key task medical affair carries out in any pharmaceutical industry and also at AstraZeneca. So first, let's talk about the evidence generation. So I need not to say to this audience the different stages of clinical trial development program. So evidence generation, the key is like if I talk about the global organization, they would try and understand where are the gaps or what are the unmet needs for a particular disease and the patient, what kind of current therapies are available, what kind of treatment targets we could eye for. And then the clinical journey starts with preclinical stage, and then the stage 1, 2, 3 for clinical development, and then the drugs dossiers get submitted and the drugs are commercialized based on the approvals. But it doesn't stop only there. After that, there is a need for real world effectiveness, the patient reported outcome, what kind of health economic research and evidence are needed, and how the local data can complement the global studies to improve the implementation of the clinical evidence into the clinical practice. This can be done nowadays. I think Kavita talked about the technology and the digital evolution, and India is also going through that phase. Like there are a lot of insurance claims. Many hospitals have now deployed the electronic medical records. So all of these, how best we can use the technology and AI to analyze those data and do a meaningful publication out of it, so that evidence generation doesn't become a long 2-3 year project which takes a lot of time, efforts and investment, but actually leverage the existing database in the electronic records to come up with something which is really quick and insightful as well. The function role of the medical affairs in the global clinical R&D team or the clinical development tree is also to give insights on what is the optimal clinical study design, what kind of patients should be enrolled, the inclusion exclusion criteria, and what the endpoints should be, what the study duration, optimal duration should be. So those kind of inputs are also given by medical affairs team into the global R&D teams as well. We also work with key institutes and like-minded experts who are always keen to do their own little research. We call it externally sponsored research program. We have a platform for that, and then physicians are welcome to submit their proposal. We work with them to align and refine their proposals, and then support them throughout the journey to take those evidence back to the HCP community as well. And the publication. So of course, generating evidence is useful, but sometimes doing the publications, working with the experts to come up with consensus paper or analyze, review, do meta-analysis and those kind of publications to share the information and the insights from the available existing resources and the data back to the HCP community so that they can take well-informed decision on applying them in their day-to-day clinical practice as well. The next one, please. Yeah. So I think it's no more like developing a pill and then selling the pill to the end customer. I think that used to be a conventional pharmaceutical industry. Now it has become a more comprehensive care, developing an ecosystem and making sure that we do a lot of other things to make sure that these treatments are accessible. And when I talk about access, I think the first thing comes to my mind is making sure that every innovation which is done at a global level and made available in developed countries like US and Europe are brought to India as fast as possible. I think that is a first step in creating access of the treatment, which means that these medicines are now available to the Indian patients as well. The second is like making sure that whatever local data generation, health economic data we need to generate to support the clinical use of these molecules in the Indian context is quickly planned, I would say, ahead of the launch of the product in the country as well. So that because these are time-taking efforts and the data becomes available in parallel to when the medicines are getting launched in the countries. Then the value-based field medical. So I think, in fact, at AstraZeneca, we developed this new team, which is like medical affairs team dedicated to market access and making sure that they are speaking to the stakeholders, the government officials, and discussing the pros and cons of having these medicines available to the patients and available in the formulary. So the scientific discussion around these partnerships are carried forward by our field medical team who are dedicatedly working on this particular pillar as well. Then patient-facing activities, especially in specialized conditions, oncology, rare disease, and more specialized products, which are not like, let's say, routine chronic disease care. Then a lot of patient engagement is also needed because patients will have a lot of apprehensions and they're going through the emotional turmoil while they are actually dealing with the disease. So making sure that the medical affairs be a partner with the patients and help them in their journey to navigate through different situations, decision making, and then provide the right scientific information in a balanced way to the patients as well. So it is not only we work with the physicians and the external stakeholders, but we equally do work with the patients also, because at the end of the day, everything we do is for the patient. Next slide, please. So when it comes to the medical engagement, so different function will have different way of engaging the physicians, but the way medical engage the customer is one, having the scientific discussion through the field medical team, engaging them in different educational platforms so that either they are exposed to the right science or they become advocate for us to help us actually spread the science, then answering their medical queries and taking care of the medical information, any scientific material needed in the therapy area which you operate. The medical team makes sure that they are passing it on to the queries and addressing them in a timely manner. We participate in a lot of company-led scientific programs, but also collaborate for various national level, regional level scientific events, congresses, conferences to make sure that they become a good scientific platform to spread the science so that every stakeholder is well informed and they are taking the right decision in the interest of the patient as well. And of course, we do the research, as I was saying earlier. If there are any gaps and more evidence needs to be generated, we work and provide sponsorship grants or work with them through the different research proposals as well. Next slide, please. So what I've been saying in last 15 minutes or so, so medical affair is a core and it bridges the different functions across the pharmaceutical industry. And if I was to talk about the different functions at AstraZeneca. It might take actually the entire day, but let's say the medical affair is in the center, and then you have the commercial team, the marketing team, the market access team, the patient safety team, the regulatory team. So everyone revolves around the medical affairs, which is like a bridge between all of these functions, because we not only provide the strategy, we collect the information through our field medical team and then do the analysis and provide insights to all the functions. We also create the right evidence which is needed to drive our strategy. We create a lot of content around patient education, HCP education, be it for the conference, and then percolate it through, we call nowadays omni-channel, so different channels, and make sure that the reach is maximized. And then we also are at the center to make sure that the patient care beyond selling a pill is also managed in the scientific way by the medical affairs team. So, I mean, sufficient to say that medical affairs is like at the center, and then each function within the company will evolve around the medical affairs. Next slide, please. Yeah. Last 2-3 slides. Ashish, let me know if we are over time, but I'll try and do a quick summary here. So if you found the last 20 minutes interesting and now you have curiosity and interest to join the medical affairs professional, this slide talks about the skills and the capabilities which you would need. So at the base, definitely you need to be a scientific expert to understand the science, and that's why medical affairs are needed in the industry. You also need to have the compliance understanding, because this is health sector very closely monitored and watched by the external people, but also we are dealing with the patient and the health. So we need to make sure that everything is done in the most compliant way and in the best interest of the patient. And now we have added this digital analytic expertise as well, which has become indispensable across any function, not only medical affairs, but that's something which we have added. And I'm sure the list will keep expanding and evolving as the time passes. Once you have this base strong, then comes the adaptive leadership, which is around how do you engage with your customer, who is your physician. So let's say you pass out your MD pharmacology, you join a certain company as MSL, and now you are in front of the top oncologist of the country or top cardiologist of the country. So what you will do to make sure that that expert is engaged with you, interested in the information you are passing on, and then you are actually developing an advocate for your science and for your product. So I think that takes a lot of attention, and that's what get developed in the initial phase of the career. Then the business knowledge, as I say, I think it's not an NGO, it's a pharmaceutical company. We are making money by providing better health to the patient. And I always hear this from my senior leaders, like medical affair is not about knowing your science. I mean, that's given, that's why you are hired and you are in the company. But how you can convert that science into a business proposal, your business acumen needs to be very strong. So I think that is something which is always valued in a medical affairs by the business. Yeah? So I think these are different levels, and always good to keep that in front of us if you are working in the medical affairs team. Next slide, please. This can be more complex or simple depending on the industry and the pharmaceutical company you may join. But in general, the pathway works like this. The medical science license or regional medical advisor we call, which is a field-based executional role. Then you have the medical advisors and medical affairs manager, which is partly office-based and need-based in the field, but a strategic role where you are actually working with cross-functional team to define and develop the strategy, the content which gets executed in the field by your field medical team. and then you become a team leader or a medical affairs director or a head of medical affairs. Different title exist across the country, but that's like a leadership role where you are managing multiple therapy areas, multiple portfolios, multiple teams, and providing a strategic leadership, people management, and people development roles. And also you contribute to the company at large and navigate how the business is run in the country. So it's a very simplified slide. It's way more complex actually in the real life, but I think there's a good base information for you to have on the first day of this PHARMASTEER program. Next slide, please. I think again a different way to represent the same information. Yeah. Typically, if you are thinking of excelling in one function, you could start from MSL and you may end up being medical director. But I have seen many professionals who take the lateral movement. They may go to market access team, they may actually go to marketing team, some may have gone to sales team, some may have become CEOs and company president in the industry as well. So yeah, this is one way to look at it. But if you are agile and open to the learning and acquiring new skill sets, you could actually take different paths which exist in a pharmaceutical company and excel in different areas as well. Next slide, please. If you can build the animations. Yeah, as I keep saying, and Kavita was also saying, the medical affairs function keeps under constant evolution. And if I talk about the 15 years I have spent in this industry, I think back then people were asking, you are a doctor, why are you joining a pharma company? Why are you visiting doctors and talking about science? Literally, they used to tell me like, you are doing a job of an MR or a rep. So from there in India, the medical affairs function has evolved today where it has become indispensable and core to the business. And it is expected to evolve even at a faster pace because the digital innovation, the role of AI, the way we do clinical trials, the way we communicate this, the way we develop this scientific content is rapidly evolving. So we definitely need to be very agile more so now and make sure that we understand the external trend and adapt our capabilities to the requirements as well. With that, I think my last slide. Next one, please. Yeah, so I think these are some of the resources based on which I have summarized the presentation, and Ashish can comment. Maybe we'll make some of these available to you as well if you have interest in it. But thank you for the patient listening. I might have gone slightly over the time, but happy to stay back and take questions as needed. Thank you, everyone. Ashish, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Hardik. And in fact, you were right on time. And thanks a lot for an excellent talk, Dr. Hardik, and showcasing how medical affairs lead the change when it comes to ensuring evidence-based science is getting translated into the clinical practice for improved patient outcomes. We do have received certain questions from the audience, and my first question to you, Dr. Hardik, is what are some of the biggest challenges faced by medical affairs today and how one should be prepared for it? You're on mute, Dr. Hardik.
Sorry. So this is one of the challenges I'm facing, technology.
Yes.
But anyway, no, most pertinent question. I think if I talk about my experience, my experience, the one question which I always ask is like, how relevant I am to the business, right? And if I'm in a research-based company, research-based organization, there are other functions, including commercial functions, and the top line in the revenue would always matter. But how we can make sure that medical affair drives the decision making and the business is done in the most scientific and the compliant manner is a challenge which is here to stay forever. And it also depends on your capability, leadership skills, cross functional organizational skill to make sure make people understand your viewpoint and then help them drive the business. So I think that's number one. And second is always making sure that you are a voice of a patient, you are a voice of a science. So never to go overboard in terms of communication to the physicians. Whenever, whatever you are communicating in terms of your clinical trial, clinical data, or anything, it is always to be the credible, accurate, and most balanced. If these things are not there, then people will not value you as much as the people will value someone who is following these three key values.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hardik. I think the next question is from Sabia Sachi Mishra, and the question is, what do you not do in medical affairs, and what does not come under medical affairs?
Okay, yeah. So I think I read somewhere that the human being knows 0.01% of the universe, like how the universe works. Linking to this question, very difficult to answer, like what we do not do. The pharmaceutical industry is so vast. Like I always used to think, like when I was young, I'm still, but like when I joined the industry, it is so simple. Like you do a clinical trial, you identify the product, and then that product will be taken by the patient. What's the big deal? Why do you need such a large organization, so many functions, and so many people? But it's way complex than that. I think if I talk about AstraZeneca, let's say I have one manufacturing site in US who is producing a particular product X, and now then making sure that that product X passes through all the regulatory hurdle or the custom compliance hurdle, meeting rules and regulations and standards of 100 plus countries where we are operating, and then that medicine finally reaches to a patient. You are convincing a physician who believes in your product and prescribes it to the patient. You are creating the right kind of access to make that medicine available and accessible, affordable to the patient. Patient takes that medicine, we follow the patient to make sure that the safety reports are collected in a compliant way, and if those are submitted to the regulatory team. So I think it's way large and complex than even I have understood so far. So yeah, in nutshell, let's say we focus on core medical affairs, which I summarized in my presentation, and for everything else, you have different function in the industry. We'll do that. But if I have to give a short answer, we never promote a product, or we never sell a product to gain a prescription and gain a business for the commercial success. That's not what medical affairs do. We always focus on the science and communicate science for a better patient care.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hardik, for responding to all of the questions that came across. Thank you so much, students, for these amazing questions that you put forth. Thanks a lot for that. And thank you so much, Dr. Hardik, for an excellent talk on the critical role of medical affairs. Thanks a lot for that. Now,
Bye.
thank you so much. With that, let us now move on to our last but not the least topic of the day, nurturing lifelong learning. And for that, we have with us Dr. Gitanjali Batmanaban, Vice Chancellor of Medical Sciences, Geetham Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Vishakhapatnam. Dr. Gitanjali is a Pro Vice Chancellor of Medical Sciences at Geetham Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, with extensive experience at JIPMER, and as former Director of AIMS Bhubaneswar, she exemplifies academic excellence and strategic leadership. Internationally recognized for her work with World Health Organization, she was the inaugural head of World Health Organization Collaborating Center on Essential Medicines at JIPMER. Dr. Gitanjali's strategic vision and commitment to advancing healthcare have made her prominent figure in medical education and leadership. With that, please join me in welcoming remarkable Dr. Gitanjali on stage. Ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, ma'am. Sorry.
We
Yeah,
can
I
see
think
now.
it's visible now. Yes, yes, it's
Yeah?
visible now. Yes, it's visible
Okay.
now.
So thank you very much for inviting me to be a speaker at PHARMASTEER 2024. I thank Professor Sandhya and Dr. Padmaja who have invited me, and it gives me great pleasure to be amongst the younger speakers from AstraZeneca. Today, I will be sharing with you a few of my thoughts on nurturing lifelong learning. It's one of the topics which I am interested in, and so I hope that all of you would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed putting these slides together. So the question is, what is lifelong learning? Lifelong learning is the continual, voluntary, and self-directed pursuit of knowledge and skills for one's own development. So I want you to focus on these adjectives: continual, voluntary, and self-directed. And it's for your own development. So that's how, as you learn, you continue to grow. And that's the definition. Why do we need lifelong learners? Because that is one of the most effective means of tackling the current global challenges, which are enormous. And there is a constant need to upskill and reskill in order to adapt to this world, which is in constant change. And this is not said by anyone like me, it's by UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning. So many hundreds of years ago, Greek philosopher said, the only thing that is constant is change. So we know this for hundreds of years. If we do, then we need to ask, why are we worried about this? So the question we need to ask is, what has changed about change? That's the most important question to ask here. And we know that change is happening. We know change is faster or it is accelerating. But the point is that until now, people have been able to adapt to this change because there was sufficient time. So you could go to school, learn some skills, go to college, learn some more, and that was enough for your lifetime to be able to function independently, to function effectively in society. Unfortunately, the speed, scale, and impact of change has changed so much that it is no longer possible for people to be able to adapt easily. So if you look at this very complicated diagram I have here, if you look at the changes which happened, just before 1800, there was the steam engine and first vaccine for smallpox. And there were quite a few changes between 1800 to 1900, photography, telegraph, and so on. From 1900 to 2000, in these 100 years, enormous changes. From Wright brothers' first airplane to now we are going to space, and the antibiotics were discovered, nuclear bomb, and so on. So I was born somewhere here, 1956 I was born. And I can tell you in my lifetime, there have been so many changes. Now, if you look at this table on this slide, you know that the doubling time of medical knowledge in 1950 was 50 years. Now it is 73 years. 73 days, sorry, 73 days. So you can imagine as time goes on, it will become shorter and shorter. So somebody entering medical school, by the time he's coming out, most of what he learns there would probably be outdated. And this is the problem of the challenge with being able to assimilate so much of information and the time taken is so less, you don't have really time to adapt. When Lata ji passed away, there was this cartoon which was circulating. To me, it showed that within her lifetime of singing, she has gone through all the technology innovations which happened in sound in order to reproduce sound. There were the gramophone records, and then there was the radio, then there was transistor radio, there was this CD, and then now we listen to her on our phone. So to me, in a short span of one person's musical lifetime, she used all the technology. So that's the speed with which technology is advancing. And as medical people, we know that that's happening too. So the illiterates of the 21st century are not going to be people who can't read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is the truth which we all need to keep in mind. So you may ask me, what kind of learning is important? The kind of learning that would be important, there are many, many models, but I would still stick with what is called a T model of learning. You need to have very deep understanding of your core area. You have to be sound. If you're a pharmacologist, you better know everything about your core subject area. And then you also need to have a broader understanding of work outside your core area. That's important because that's the way that will make you more employable. You'll be able to apply for jobs. People will want to hire you for what you know outside of your core area. Let me get this very straight. If you don't know your core area, you're not going to get selected at all. But what's going to make the difference between one candidate and the other would probably be your ability to work outside the core area. So there could be areas which are linked to your core area, but they would be something like, if you ask for some topics, I would say maybe research methodology, it would be statistics. You might want to know a little bit of programming. You might want to have, probably you have good communication skills and so on. So if we look at the sustainable development goals, goal number 4 is quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all fits within this SDG 4. Therefore, we envisage a society in which anyone can learn according to his or her needs and interests at any time in an unrestricted, flexible, and constructive way. And that's the beauty of lifelong learning. You need not put it into a particular pocket or a parcel and say it has to be done this way. It's to you to adapt. It's to you to chalk your way through this learning. So it can be done in formal, in informal, or non-formal manner. That's fine. So you may ask me, though, what are the key benefits? Why should we do it? First is it gives you an enhanced perspective on your subject or on the world. You'll tend to look at things from different points of view, which is really very important if you want to move forward in your life. There are immense health benefits. We all know about the health benefits, including, preventing cognitive problems as we grow older and things like that. Of course, it gives you a lot of confidence, and there is also improved productivity. That's why I'm saying you need to start seriously thinking about lifelong learning right now. Now, UNESCO in somewhere in the 1990s, they commissioned a paper to Jacques Delors and asked him to write about lifelong learning. And he came out with this 4 pillars of education, or 4 pillars of learning, which he said, one is learning to know. Learning to know doesn't mean like you go and you want to learn a subject. It is learning how to learn. Learning to know means you learn how to learn. Learning to do. How do you do things which you have learned? How do you bring it into practice? Learning to be. How do you reach your highest potential? And how will you lead fulfilled lives as an individual? Learning to live together. How will you live in a world where there is so much of hate, so much of disparity, how will we all learn to live together in a world? So he said these are the 4 pillars of learning. And if we look at lifelong learning, we need to think that these are the eventual goals of lifelong learning, because these are the main pillars. However, that was more than 25 years ago. So now, if we are looking at the 21st century learning, these pillars have to be slightly modified. So learning to know becomes learning to study, inquire, and co-construct together. How will we learn? Each one may have a area of specialization, but how will we all come together in order to solve a problem? How will we collectively mobilize? It might be manpower, it might be ideas, but how do we collectively mobilize people to do something? How do we learn to attend and care? Because it's not enough if we ourselves feel accomplished. We need everyone around us to feel the same. We should bring in that positivity. And lastly, learning to live together meant that you learned to live together with other human beings. But we have only one world. So we need to live in this world with the animals, with the planet itself. So how do you learn to live in a world and sustain ourselves so that everyone lives in harmony? So the 21st learning pillars became slightly modified. Dr. Seuss famously said, it is better to know how to learn than to know. What wonderful words. So lifelong learning is a mindset. You either have the mindset that you want to do or you don't. But now it has become a non-negotiable fact of life. You need to learn in order to survive. One of our famous architects of the ancient world, Michelangelo, when he was 71 years old, he was asked to design part of the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And when he was 87, he said these words, Ancora imparo, I am still learning. That is the mindset we all need to have. So what do you need in order to commit to lifelong learning? First is you need to have time. Forever, we can't be saying we don't have time. So you need to proportion time for learning if you're serious about it. You also need to have the energy. If you have some work in which the whole day you are on your feet and you are physically not in a position to do it, it's not going to work. So you need to be able to proportion time at a time when you will have the energy to learn. Fortunately, we live in a wonderful time when resources are abundant. So we have no problem with resources. Of course, you need to have the passion. So these are some of the things you need in order to commit to lifelong learning. So you will ask me, how should we do it? It's not rocket science. These are things which we always do, and we always, as medical people and as students of higher learning, we all do this. We identify the learning needs, make specific goals or SMART goals, and then you plan and start learning. Then we start to measure our progress in different ways. If we are happy with it, it's fine. Otherwise, we want to go and see whether our goals have been achieved. Maybe you want to stop or you want to review our goals. So somewhere down this line, you will reflect, you will introspect, you might take some tests or something like that to see how you're progressing and so on. So this is how we do this. Now, Stephen Hawking said that the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. And you will all, I think, agree with me. There are lots of people who go on with this illusion of knowledge. They think they know everything. They actually believe they know. And this is the problem which we need as lifelong learners. We need to be able to distinguish whether we actually know something or we don't. So as medical educators, we are now asked by the National Medical Council to foster lifelong learning. It's one of the competencies which our medical graduates are expected to have. And this was a beautiful paper written by Mahajan and group, where they say that in order to foster lifelong learning, that is nurture lifelong learning, all these things like e-learning, portfolios, reciprocal teaching, reflections, all these will help. And some of the attributes of a lifelong learner, I'm sure you have people whom you know. You will find these attributes within them. So take a look and ask yourself whether you have any of these attributes and you can work on it. However, I want to tell you something. None of these things which have been listed have actually been, it is not evidence based. There is no evidence to show it works. We believe it may work. So that's one of the things we need to keep in mind. These may be helpful, but there is no evidence to show that it works. So as there are many students listening to it, you may want to ask me, so what learning or skills should I focus at present? If you are either still studying or if you have just passed out, I'm sure your next focus will be on the next goal will be to get a good job. That is probably universal, or at least it will be true for 95% of the people who are here, if you are a student or you have just passed out. So what would I say in order to put you in the right direction? Prepare a good CV. And when I say good CV, it should have no mistakes. The devil is in the details, as they say. You can't have your name spelled without a capital letter. You can't have wrong pin code. You can't have a wrong email address. You can't have your publications given in different styles of, how you are writing your references. So make sure you have a good CV. Get your thesis published. If you have just passed out, the first question we asked is, have you published your thesis? So make sure you either get your thesis published or at least you have submitted it for publication and it is under review. While you are in college, at least try to have one publication. It might be a case report. Make sure they are in good journals. If you are going for an interview, research the company or institution. I know that many people who come when I have been heading the institutions, they will come and start talking about medical education because they know that's a hot button for me. Okay. Or they'll start something about essential medicines. So you need to research a company or institution and know and tell how you will fit into their vision. Demonstrate discipline. If you have to come at 9 o'clock, be there 10 or 15 minutes before time. Make sure you are well groomed. Make sure you sit only after you are being offered a seat. So you need to show that you are a disciplined person when you are there. And if you are even doing a virtual interview, make sure you are properly dressed. There is nothing more irritating than taking an interview where somebody is in a t-shirt and saying, so what? I mean, they are not here for, the way I look, but that's not true. So make sure you demonstrate discipline. Prepare well for your interview. I have had interviews with people who have come. There was a clinical pharmacist I was interviewing for our hospital, and out of the 6 people, 5 people could not even say what an adverse event was. So this kind of a thing coming unprepared is a no-no. And then, of course, don't let failure break you. I have failed in many interviews, and that has never stopped me, but always made me learn more. So having said that, now there are these top 10 21st century skills which are becoming more and more essential. In fact, as I was listening to Kavita and Hardik's talk, it told me how much these other skills will be important to you as well. So make sure you think about them, and you may want to, go into, do a deep dive in 1 or 2 things. At least learn about them, collaborative problem solving, cultural competency, and so on. Even though we have Chat GPT nowadays, I can tell you it is still important to have effective communication skills, both written as well as oral. And media literacy is so much of information is there. We need to be able to manage how we use this information. Leadership, adaptive leadership, as Hardik was saying, critical thinking, and also taking responsibility and initiative. These are things which you slowly need to develop. They are very difficult, but you can read a lot on them. I personally listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to TED Talks. So there is a lot of information, and I read a lot. So there is a lot of information which you can take in if you are wanting to improve yourself. Focus on things that won't easily change. And all these 21st century skills are not going to change in a hurry. So that would be my take for you. One of my favorite authors said the most important skill for the 21st century is emotional intelligence. True. We need to have the ability to understand and manage not just our emotions, but also we need to be able to influence other people's emotions as well. And therefore, we need to work on the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, which is a lifelong skill which you will need to develop. So, this is something I would ask all of you to think about. So, how do you nurture lifelong learning? We have to continue to be curious, like children. They're curious about everything, asking 100 questions. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. If you are not going to step out of it, you're not going to improve. Seek feedback and mentoring. Don't be afraid of people giving you critical feedback. That is important to improve yourself. Reflect on your goals, reassess. Learn stuff that interests you. There is no point in you learning things which are not going to interest you, or you're not going to feel happy about learning. And it would help to join communities of like-minded people. It may be an internet community, it might be a physical community where you want to learn something together. Please go ahead and do that. These are all some tips to nurture lifelong learning. I'm going to stop with another 2 slides. One is, you need to know that perception is how you view things through your own lens, your own experience, as well as your own outlook. If you look at this picture, both the person on that canoe as well as the guy on the island, both of them think that they have been saved. But the correct perspective on them from an outsider's is both of them are not saved. They are both sunk. Okay. So perspective is more important than perception, because perspective is how other people view you. And that is very important. People say what matters most is how you see yourself. No, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. While you are still working, it is important that you also see how other people see yourself. It's not enough how you see yourself. Sometimes you don't recognize your true worth. And that's why it's important that you document your journey. You have a way of knowing what you have done, because you tend to forget all the things which you have done. So it might be an e-portfolio, or it might be a proper recording of things. You will need to be able to document your journey, which is very important. So we should never judge by appearance. That's what we say. But very often we are judged for our appearance. So be mindful of that. That is why I'm saying we always should go with what is how other people perceive us. That's very, very important. But we ourselves, we should also believe that we should never judge by appearance, because there might be people who have a lot to say, lot to give to an institution, whom we would want to emulate in our journey to improve ourselves. So I'll conclude this by saying lifelong learning is no longer a choice. It is a necessity. We all have to embrace this at some point of time. There are plenty of opportunities. That's the wonderful thing about being in this year and age, where if you look for opportunities of learning, there are plenty. Focus on learning which will strengthen your employability at this point of time. And later on, why somebody should retain you at that institution, why they should not let you go. So that would be your immediate focus for now. But you also need to have a long-term goal, as I have pointed out, many of the opportunities which you can get. And then you also should immerse yourself in the joy of learning. Thank you very much for a patient hearing, and I'll be very happy to start taking questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gitanjali ma'am, for being here with us today and for this thought-provoking and insightful talk which you have had. And you highlighted the importance of lifelong learning, specifically in cases where we want to remain at the forefront of the impact which we want to create in any of the perspectives of life. So thank you so much for that. We do have received some questions from the students, and I'll request you to kindly address those. And my first
Sure.
question to you is, uh, how can individuals access support and guidance to navigate their learning paths effectively?
So support and guidance can come in two ways. One is, if you are within an institution, you have access to everyone. And my thing would be, don't hesitate to ask. See, the major problem with us is we think that if somebody says, no, I can't help you, that's something wrong. That's okay. But if you don't ask, you lose out on somebody who is going to willing to say yes. So if you need some support within an institution, don't hesitate to ask. If it is somebody outside, see, nowadays there is no problem in communicating. So feel free to ask. If they want, let them say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But I know many people will be happy to help you. So the problem which is limiting is you hesitate to ask. So don't hesitate. That would be my advice.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question to you is, how can curiosity be cultivated and maintained throughout one's journey?
So the problem with curiosity is, as adults, we tend to stop. Even children, no, don't ask questions. Oh, stop it. Stop talking. That's our go-to response many times. And therefore, when we become teenagers and we become adults, we stop asking questions because we are afraid that we will be shut down. My thing about curiosity is, you need to be open to receiving input from other sources. It might be a movie, it might be a book, it might be a discussion which you are hearing. The wonder of it all is that you have now a huge variety of media and input which you can use to kindle your curiosity. So I can't say that, this is how you should be curious. No. But if something strikes you as, I'd like to learn a little more, please go ahead and learn. And that's good for all of us. So my thing would be, if you have a postgraduate student who's asking a lot of questions, please don't say don't ask questions. As mentors, we need to promote them to ask more and more questions. And if we can't answer it, that's fine. But the problem is that we tend to stop people from asking questions. So curiosity as such is something which cannot be, what shall I say? I can't make you curious. But I would say, supposing something kindles your mind, or there is a thought, go through that thought process, and that you will find that your curiosity is always kindled. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much for responding to that, ma'am. So I'll take your view on one last question. And the question is, how can organization, including the educational institutions as well as the industry, integrate lifelong learning into their culture and values?
Okay. So one of the things there are two things which is happening. We are expected as organizations to give continuous learning or training to upskill and reskill our employees. That is something which the organization has to take responsibility. For example, I'm just giving you an example. Supposing we have nurses. We need to continuously keep training them to help them use the new technology, help them use new equipment which has come in, and that is part of your responsibility as a that is a part of your responsibility as an employer. That's number one. However, for lifelong learning, organizations can have, you can have courses which are after office hours, which people can come. Maybe you can charge less for those courses so that people don't have to pay more to attend those courses. There are lots of universities which do courses to skill and reskill people who are no longer their students, let me say. And that is a responsibility which institutions can certainly take up. And there would be people who are willing to give their time and energy to do that in addition. So that kind of thing should work. That's my this thing. There are institutions which are doing that, because while I was researching for this, I came across a lot of opportunities, especially abroad, where universities are doing that for, slightly older people. And there are people, older people who have a lot of skill who are coming back to teach. They are given some, opportunities to teach and engage with people who don't have the skill and so on. So that's happening already.
Great. Thank you so much for responding to all the questions that came across, Dr. Gitanjali ma'am. Thanks a lot for being here with us today and for the insightful session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Both Sandhya and Padmaja, thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for sparing time for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as we
Thank you.
conclude the first day of PharmaSteer 2024, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries who joined us during the inauguration, esteemed speakers, and all the attendees out there for contributing to such an enriching and inspiring day. On day two, we actually have planned extremely important topics, an exciting lineup of sessions, including importance of medical strategy in business, patient safety, facilitating access, publishing research paper using e-tools. So these topics promise to provide valuable insights and strategies to keep us at the forefront. So I would like to see you all at day two of PharmaSteer 2024, which is on 29th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone.